Why are horses so big?
Oh, that's a tricky question, I think. So, as you know, there are lots of different breeds of horses. There are lots of different breeds of other animals, and they're all built depending on what their purpose is. So you've probably seen some tiny little miniature Shetlands. Now, they don't do very much in terms of work nowadays anyway, but they've been bred to be that way. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got your massive great Shire horses, and they're built very tall with lots of muscle, and they're quite short if you look at them, and they're built to pull carts and to pull carriages. And in the middle, you've got your horses like your thoroughbreds and things like that. So the reason that they are mostly the height that they are now is purely because of what we've done as humans. We've said we're a certain height, therefore we need something of a certain height to sit on and to ride. And having something that's only knee height isn't that useful. Lovely to look at and, you know, very sweet, but absolutely useless as a working horse. So that's probably why they are the size they are.
Why are they nervous animals?
Horses are relatively nervous, especially when they're younger or they've had sort of bad treatment in the past. And a lot of that is to do with the fact that they're fight and flight animals. So they are prey rather than predators. They get eaten rather than eat other animals. So therefore, they are nervous because any potential fast movement, anything in their background, anything like that is a potential threat. Also, I don't know whether you can think of what a horse's head looks like, but their eyes are on the side of their heads rather than at the front. So our eyes are at the front of our head. We can see everywhere. We can turn our heads. We can see everything in front of us. We can see everything to the side. We just have a blind spot behind us. Horses' blind spots are in front of them. They can't see anything in front of them at all. So if you were to approach your horse from head on, until you get very, very close to that horse, they're not going to have a clue that you're there. But you would hope that if you have your own, or if you ride your own, or if you go to a riding stables, a lot of those ponies, a lot of those horses are going to be used to humans. They're going to be used to people touching them, grooming them. So they become a lot less nervous because they start to trust you. They'll start to recognise your voice. But in general, they're nervous because when they're first put into an unusual situation, they think everything's going to eat them, or everything has the potential to eat them anyway. So that's why.
Why do horses eat loads and then eat grass?
So, horse's diet is actually reasonably simple, or a basic horse's diet is anyway. If you think of the horses that live on the moors or in the New Forest, all they do all day is they eat grass and they eat forage. They eat grass, they eat bushes, they eat trees, they eat all those kinds of things. Now, a horse's diet, to be healthy, has to eat most of their diet should be made up of forage. So they should be eating a lot of grass. They should be eating a lot of, hay for stabled horses, those kinds of things. And that helps with the health of their gastrointestinal system, so of their stomach and of all their intestines. Keeps everything moving through properly, and also it stops them getting problems like stomach ulcers. So it's really, really important for them to eat a huge quantity, and it's probably more than you can think that they eat in a day on grass, but because they're constantly eating. So a few figures as such, if you think an average human, so I weigh about 65 kilograms. I don't know what that is in stones, but I know I weigh about 65 kilograms. An average horse weighs between about 500 and 650 kilograms. So that's 10 times more than me, I guess, is the best way to think about it. Now, in a day, to maintain weight, so this is a whole 24-hour period from morning to morning or from night to night, they need to eat 3% of their body weight in forage. So again, that's a bit of a funny number to get your head around, but if you think about a 500-kilo horse, that is, so a 100-kilo horse would need 3 kilos of hay a day, a 500-kilo horse would need 15 kilos of hay or grass. And actually, if you were to weigh that, that's quite a lot. And if you think about the amount that you think a horse is getting just from nibbling grass, you may not think they get that much, but you would be surprised because they do not stop. They will keep eating until they get that. Obviously, if there's shortages, then they will lose weight. If they're given too much, then they will put on weight. If you think of it in that they need a lot of forage, they need a lot of fibre, then actually it's quite easy. You just give them lots of hay, lots of grass, and as long as you're not giving them too much, they shouldn't put on weight, and as long as you're not giving them too little, they won't lose it.
Are there any wild horses, and how do they live in the wild?
So technically, I think there is only one breed of wild horse left, and I'm going to attempt to pronounce its name, but I can guarantee that I'm going to pronounce it wrong. And it's something along the lines of Przewalski horse, I think it's pronounced. I couldn't. But they're technically, or they were a few years ago anyway, the only technically wild horses left. But I'm not sure whether they even are technically wild anymore, because they have people that intervene with them as such. I guess the best example of a wild equine, so that's the group of animals that they come under, is the zebra. They're very much wild. They still are wild. Obviously, we have some in captivity. But horses are very much group animals, so in the wild they like to stay in a group. A half of it is obviously for protection. They will form very much a hierarchy in the wild. You'll see that in fields, so if you stick your horse in a field with a load of other horses, they'll probably have a massive fight for the first 10-15 minutes. They're just sorting out their hierarchy. They want to determine who's boss of this herd at this moment in time. You'll see that most horses, most zebras, things like that, you will very rarely see one by itself, and if it is, it's probably likely to be quite ill or unwell, or it's just got lost. But in general, if they can't keep up with the herd, that's it. So they're very much herd animals, and like we said before, they are a prey species, so things want to eat them, so they have to look out for each other to try and help each other keep safe. In England, we have some horses that I guess you could think of as wild, so the ones like in the New Forest, on Dartmoor, things like that, but we as humans intervene with them a lot. A lot of the ones on the moors and in the New Forest as well, you'll see will have collars or tags on. They actually, although they look wild, are actually owned by people. They're just allowed to graze on that land for free. It's common land, I suppose. But they just graze continuously. They do quite well. Obviously, in England, they don't have the issues of things trying to eat them. The biggest predators that we've got in this country are your foxes and your badgers, and I think even they would struggle to attack a horse unless it was a foal. But then again, all the horses in a herd will then group around a foal and look after it, and they will keep an eye out for it, so they will keep up with it, they will let it keep up with the herd. But they survive quite well in the wild by being a herd animal and by looking out for each other. They all sort of take it in turns to look out for each other, is the kind of general theory as to how they survive quite well, really.
Why do horses sleep standing up?
So again, that's a lot to do with the fact that they're a prey species. You think of a zebra out in the wild, if a lion suddenly comes up and tries to chase them, they need to be able to get away quite quickly. I don't know whether you've ever watched a horse trying to stand up. It's not the most graceful thing in the world, and it's not the quickest thing in the world. By the time they were up and ready to go, they wouldn't be able to go anywhere. So the horse has quite a clever mechanism in its back leg, which means that they can stand while they're sleeping, but they're using no effort whatsoever. So if you imagine when we're standing, after, I don't know, half an hour to an hour, you start to ache a bit because you're using your muscles. Your muscles are used to keep you in an upright position. Horses have the ability to click some various bits into place. They move their kneecap around and they do various different things, and it's called the reciprocal apparatus, and they can move things around and everything clicks into place, and they can stand there without using any energy at all. It's just everything's locked into place. It doesn't hurt them, it's just what they do. And you'll see, if you just watch, say, a horse that's stood up being groomed, it will rest a leg and you might see that a bit sort of pops out or it looks a bit strange, and that's because they're moving their kneecap around. Basically, they're moving it around, they'll lock it into position, which means then they don't have to use any energy to stand up whatsoever. They're just stood there.
Thank you very much for coming.
That's okay.